I should be right now in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in many other states, North Carolina, Georgia, campaigning. This is all coming from the Biden White House because the guy can't put two sentences together. He can't campaign. They're using this in order to try and win an election.
If you can't beat him, lawfare him. Democrats scheme to knock Trump off his game, saddle him with bogus legal trials while his chief opponent gets a huge head start is on full display today. On the left-hand side, Scranton Joe Biden hitting the campaign trail in Pennsylvania. On the right, Donald Trump spent his day fighting to avoid being locked up after returning to a courtroom in Manhattan for day 2 of the messy paperwork showdown of the century. Biden rubbing it in Trump's face and peppering him with hoax after hoax.
He learned that paying taxes was something people who work for a living did, not him. He learned that telling people you're fired was something to laugh about. Listen to what he says. He says, quote, "I'll be dictator on day 1. Quote, I am your retribution." He promises, quote, a bloodbath if he loses. I wake every morning thinking about how to make life better like you do for working and middle-class families here in Scranton and all across the country.
Today, 6 jurors were officially selected to serve on Trump's criminal trial. 12 more to go. Others got dismissed after copping to being impartial. Trump did, however, smile at a guy who said he had read a few of his books. At one point, the judge scolding the former president for audibly muttering while a juror was speaking, warning him that he won't tolerate that. Radical DA Alvin Bragg is hungry to lock up Trump, filing a motion to hold the ex-president in contempt and fine him $3,000 for alleged breaches of a gag order against disparaging trial witnesses. The liberal media getting their kicks about a report that Donald Trump fell asleep during the proceedings. Watch.
He made a pretty specific stare at me and walked out of the room. I reported earlier that he had appeared to fall asleep. I've seen lots of people fall asleep in courtrooms. I've seen jurors fall asleep. I've seen judges fall asleep.
The wheels of justice grind slowly. I did not think they would grind so slowly that they would rock the defendant apparently to sleep.
Imagine committing so many crimes, you get bored at your own trial.
Word of the day, contumacious. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Way to go, David. I mean, that's better than fake news. I worked on that.
Enemy of the sleeple.
I doubt anybody at home is nodding off after the conversation.
Joy Reid somehow topping all of that.
There is something wonderfully poetic about the fact that despite the fact that even if convicted, he's not going to go to prison, the first person to actually criminally prosecute Donald Trump is a black Harvard grad, and a black woman is doing that same exact thing in Georgia, and a black woman forced you to pay a $175 million fine. Go DEI. My DEIs are bringing it home.
Go DEI, Greg.
She said it's wonderfully poetic, but there was no rhyming there. She should have said it's really all right because the victim is white. She could have said because I'm black, I can pull off a racist attack, or I can be a bigoted grump because I got hair like Trump. That would have been nice. Imagine if a white person said this. You know, this is so poetic how these white folks are giving it to the black man. And it does reflect, I'm joking, but it reflects a seething hatred that she does have for whites, of which MSNBC amplifies and somehow protects. It's a carbon copy of the O.J. trial. It's that, hey, a black man killed 2 whites, so it's excusable. But reverse racism is still racism. It's right there, and MSNBC should know that. Trump appearing to sleep and be bored is exactly the response this Kafkaesque persecution deserves. He is America, who, unlike this frothing infantile media, doesn't see this as some mutant form of entertainment and justice. Trump should go to trial, bring a big book, big fat John Grisham novel. Just sit there and read. Just sit there and read. That's the only response this manufactured mayhem deserves. It's just contempt. Maybe you should just bring a bag lunch, a newspaper, a kickback, and just you know, because it's a waste of they're wasting his time. They want him to break down like an anti-Israel activist, weeping. It's not going to happen.
I'm going to send him a copy of Get It Together so we can open it up inside the courtroom. Sandra, you covered this today. You saw some of these jurors. They cannot be impartial, and some of them looked a little stealthy to me, like they were trying to get on the jury.
Yeah, well, the president takes to the microphone to air his frustration that he's sitting there while Joe Biden's campaigning there, Scranton, New Jersey. What was really interesting, I said this to you guys right before the show went live, we were covering Biden's speech there in Scranton, his hometown, working class, 75,000 people. It was somewhat angry. He was very forceful about how he can do better for them. That's a tough case to make to people when they're paying roughly $888 more a month because of the Bidenflation. By the way, he never mentioned Bidenomics. He was not touting Bidenomics by name under this presidency. Their gas prices are up $1 in Pennsylvania since this president took office. You've got the median home price in Pennsylvania up 30%. There's an affordability crisis in Pennsylvania, and he's trying to tell those working class voters that his policies are working. So while the former president can't be on the ground campaigning there in Pennsylvania, his record surely is speaking for itself. But an interesting split screen, though, that Biden is out there and he has to sit there.
Piers, did you ever fall asleep during The Apprentice?
Absolutely not. That's why I won, Jesse. Thank you for reminding the American people.
You're welcome.
Yeah, look, I just think actually this is playing brilliantly for Trump. He just has to sit in that courtroom all day, every day. He needs to let Biden go off and lose his mind in making speeches that are incoherent and don't make much sense. And as you said, remind people, actually, this is the guy who's been in charge and affected my life adversely. But there's also at the heart of this, there is a real hypocrisy, particularly about this case. And I wrote about this for the New York Post today. And in my research for the column, I just discovered what I think is probably the best example of that hypocrisy, which is yesterday we touched on the fact that Trump may not be allowed to go to his son Barron's graduation ceremony, which I think most parents would have heard that and gone, wow, really? Yeah. Now, it's not been decided, but he sort of laid out the path that he may not let him go. Well, you know who did go to his child's graduation ceremony was Bill Clinton. He went to Chelsea's in the 90s when he was president. And he took to the stage and he made a speech talking of his great pride. Now, that was the same Bill Clinton who, last time I checked, had sex with an intern in the Oval Office and paid Paula Jones $850,000 to get rid of a allegation of harassment and abuse while he was a sitting president of the United States. I didn't see him in a courtroom for 6 weeks in an election year. So my message to my liberal friends is this. Why do you think this is going to do any good for you? Why do you not think people will see through this absolute double standard? John Legend was on MSNBC talking about Trump being the epitome of a two-tier justice system. He is. One rule for Trump, another rule for any Democrat presidents who've been in, I would argue, far worse situations when it comes to sexual peccadillos. So I think that this is actually, in the end, going to play well for Trump. I think this is a reality show playing out every day, all day, of him sitting in that courtroom, reminding people of a double standard.
Do you remember what Bill Clinton said when he spoke to the students? Call me when you're 18.
Judge Jeanine, congrats on being the first 5 hosts to say peccadillos.
Thank you very much.
Judge Jeanine,
part of my ongoing instruction in the English language, Jesse, you know that.
How did you interpret day 2 of this trial?
Well, I was stunned that they have as many jurors as they have. But, I go back to the legalities of it. Number one, I say to myself, you've got 87% of the people in Manhattan who voted against Donald Trump. You've got a man with 100% name recognition. I mean, there's no question about it. We've got a fundamental principle that you're going to be tried by a jury of your peers. But when you can actually prove that the jury is anti-Trump, as in 87 to 90% anti-Trump. And remember, jurors are taken from the voter rolls. They are taken from motor vehicles and a few other places, but primarily the voter rolls. I know this. I used to impanel jurors all the time. And yet what they're saying is, even though 87% of Manhattan is against him, even though this trial is also about politics and the man who's being tried is a politician, we're going to deny your change of venue and make you have this trial here. It would have been very easy for this trial to be moved to Westchester or Rockland, which are both swing counties, and they would have had a more fair jury, a more split jury. And this is a case that not only calls for it, it demands it. And so I believe that no matter what they do here, this is a hate Donald Trump jury. The second point. The gag order in this country has always been at a crossroads with the First Amendment. I've been gagged as a DA. As a judge, I have gagged DAs and defense attorneys. But when you gag both sides. And when you've got Michael Cohen just a few days ago trashing Donald Trump on April 12th, and Donald Trump is gagged and cannot respond to that. And Cohen is talking about the Georgia case. He's talking about the Florida documents case. He's talking about this case. And this judge is good with that. And the optics of, at the top of this thing, Joe Biden trashing Donald Trump and Trump being gagged because he's locked down in a criminal courtroom in a jury that hates him in a fake misdemeanor that's bootstrapped by a felony that no one knows anything about. This is not America. This is a kangaroo court with a kangaroo judge whose daughter's making millions, and you can't gag me. And this president should not be gagged.
Have you ever been
negative
gagged?
thoughts about it?
Many times. I used to get gagged a lot downtown. But...
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.